Welcome back to the 9 Acre Talk.
Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Glad you all are here. Hopefully you've had a great week. We've had a great week so far. Been very busy with lots of things going on around the farm, work things. So we sure looked forward to meeting back up with you guys and talking about our next topic this week on the 9 Acre Talk. But Nana, how about your week? How's your week been?
Oh, it's been pretty good.
Good.
Not too bad. Just feeling a little under the weather, but I'm tough. I'll get there.
Tough. She's tough enough.
Yeah.
It's awful dry here in Kansas. We have had.
It's terribly dry.
We're in a terrible drought. I've had very little to no rain at all. Don't have much for pastures around. Most of the ponds are going dry. Crops aren't looking real well right now, so.
They say we're supposed to get rain tomorrow.
Well, they said that last week,
Last
and
week
we didn't
was
get anything.
supposed to be rain all week, but we didn't get a drop.
We never got a drop. So hopefully this week we'll do better. Yeah, we haven't got a whole lot of garden planted right yet. We've got to get out there and get started on that because
it's still been getting very cold.
Hopefully our cold weather is coming to an end enough. I know others in our area went ahead and took the chance and went ahead and planted.
Yes.
So
and a lot of people have planted in a greenhouse or in their house, but we live in a tiny home. We have no room.
We don't have room to plant
we can't do that in here.
And we don't have up a high tunnel or a greenhouse or anything like that. So
that's
on the to-do list.
To-do list, yes.
We have got raised bed gardens worked up. We've got
they're ready to plant.
We're ready to plant, get started. We do have more that we're starting on, so we're adding more and more of those every day. We do have big piles of compost out here and stuff like that, but we're working on that around the farm. But that's not today's topic.
No.
Today's topic is gonna be
10 ways to make money on a small farm.
Yeah, so you have a small farm and you're looking for a way to make profit or make it pay for itself. That's where we're at currently with the 9. We don't rely solely on the 9 to pay for itself. Of course, that's why we have jobs in town. But we want to make it more supporting of itself as time goes. So
make it more sustainable for us, and
if anything to supplement what we already have going on, and hopefully get more and more towards that. More of our income comes from it than working in town for other people. I don't know as it we'll ever get fully to that point. I don't know as that we have that many acres or the right kind of acres to do it, but we have several goals that we're working towards, and everything adds a little bit to it. So we thought we would list out 10 ways for you to make money on a small farm. And some of these are going to be pretty easy because they're pretty common things. Now, we won't get into exactly how much profit that you're making off of those compared to the amount of labor you're putting in or the amount of money that it costs you to put it in. But we're definitely going to talk about what our experience has been of what actually is profitable, worth us spending effort and time and hoping that pays a lot of bills around here. The number one thing is what, Nana?
Egg production.
Egg production. Everybody, when they get a small acreage, the first thing they want to do is get them some chickens. And they think they're going to start making millions off of selling eggs to John Q. Public. And our experience with selling eggs are you have a lot of input cost into those eggs. And you kind of fight the big big farm, big markets, big farm, big box stores on selling eggs.
Or your neighbor.
Yeah. So that's some of the things that happen to us. Yeah. So when you start figuring out how much that you're going to have to pay to either buy chicks, raise them up, to get them to the age where they're going to lay eggs, or you buy hens that are already of laying age, you start figuring in feed cost with those. Pretty soon, what everyone else is selling eggs for is way cheaper than when you put a pencil to how much you have to sell eggs for.
Yes.
Now, we do sell eggs here on the farm. We make sure that we take them to local farmers market. We do Facebook marketplace advertising, word of mouth. We tell people that we'll deliver them to the local gas station or something. You know, if they message us and say they want some. And you kind of have to follow the laws within your state when it comes to selling eggs. Of course, and like our state, there is, as long as you sell under a certain amount, there's exemptions there. So always follow your state guidelines when it comes to that.
Yes.
I'm not going to say that if you got a big enough production facility that you couldn't make eggs pay for themselves, but we find ourselves that just selling a carton of eggs is not a real profitable situation for us. It does make money. It can offset the cost when you start looking at the fact that we'll feed ourselves, you know. So
yeah.
What is your opinion there?
I mean, we do other things with the eggs too to make profit with them.
Yeah, so we find, and we'll get more into that we utilize those eggs in other products that are more profitable as we go along here. So what's number 2?
Number 2 is butcher chickens.
Yeah, raising butcher chickens. So, you know, a lot of us sit there, I know if you're like us, we kind of fell under the trap of, I shouldn't say trap, but we kind of fell and got enamored with the whole, we raise chickens on pasture and we replaced our income with it. You know, and I'm not saying it can't be done.
Right.
But it depends on what part of the country you are.
Yeah.
Where you're located to a large population in the urban environment, because most country people are what? You know, if they're out in a rural area, they're already doing it too.
Yes.
They're not really going to be into paying a premium money for a chicken raised on pasture, you know.
Yeah.
So you have a whole lot of footwork to build up that business. Now, we have been successful with selling some butcher chickens. We
have some very loyal customers.
We have some very, very loyal customers. Not a lot of them.
No.
Now, if we were willing to travel, you know, an hour away to a large urban area, we probably would find a better market for that. We have tried to do some online, and we're going to focus more on that this year, trying to establish an online business to go along with raising those Cornish crosses on pasture. Number 3.
Number 3 is butcher hogs.
Butcher hogs. So do we know anything about raising butcher hogs and selling them for profit, Nana?
Oh, you know, we know a thing or two.
We might know a thing or two about selling butcher hogs.
That's our main thing here.
So basically, that's the one thing that we have found for our operation that is the most profitable for us to do, makes the most sense, is buying feeder pigs or small 8-week to 12-week-old pigs, feeding them and raising them, either moving them on pasture in a dry or large lot situation. We like to move them around as much as we can, but there's only so many acres where we can do that with.
Yeah. And we sell them by the whole or half.
Sell them by the whole or half. We have started the process to where we can sell them a cut at a time.
Yes.
But honestly, we get rid of them fast enough in wholes and halves that
we have a hard time keeping a supply of them.
Yeah, so we do a lot better job with that. And if you're more interested in like what a person gets for bang, kind of what we make for profit, in a previous episode we talked about called hanging weight, or what does hanging weight mean on hogs, and we go kind of in depth on that.
Yeah, we do.
And
that'll explain it all to you.
That explains it quite a bit. But that has been one of the more profitable things we have. Now, it does have higher input costs because of buying them, buying them, the feed, and your capital investments of your fencing and your feeders and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Water systems. You know, there's a little bit of capital investment there, but a person kind of needs to understand that that's not just for a one-time deal. That stuff will be there for
forever,
year after year after year. Not ever.
You have to replace some things occasionally, but it's there.
It is there, but
for a few years anyway.
We got started into, and that we explained like in the first episode that we got started into raising pigs and selling them for freezer pork. Kind of by accident or from the show world, and we've kind of established a market there, and it's worked out very well for us. Number 4,
incubate and sell purebred chicks.
So that goes along with your chicken operation. What we found is more profitable, instead of selling those eggs, we started putting roosters in certain purebred groups of chickens. So instead of just buying barnyard mixed chickens and stuff like that, we bought breed specific chickens. So like blue copper Morans and AM Somani and stuff like that. Now, run of the mill chickens that you can buy through the big hatcheries that are like $1 a chick, you're not gonna make a lot of profit. You really need to look for those odd breeds that are hard to come by, you know, or that are the higher dollar ones.
Yeah.
When you look at a large hatchery, those are the kind. Now, there are certain laws that you have to follow, state and federally, in order to sell chicks and stuff like that. So you need to check into that. On a small scale, I don't know, you know, what the exemptions are there and stuff like that. But, you know, an incubator, fairly inexpensive, and you can sell chicks at like swap meets and stuff like that, and usually come out pretty good on that. The other thing it does for you is if you have an excess of those chicks, you know, you can start feeding those out on pasture and stuff to butcher or sell. For us, you know, that's kind of was a gateway into the chickens for us and how we really got established in that. And now we've kind of went a little bit away from it. It gets to be a little time consuming and stuff like that, as far as taking care of incubators, taking care of small chicks, finding a market for those. But it is a way to make money on your homestead or your small farm.
It is.
Number 5.
Raise goats and sheep.
Raise goats and sheep. So, you know, if you follow some ways of thinking, they're going to tell you that, oh my, meat goats are the way to go. You know, you can raise them for meat for your family, and you can sell them by the pound, and you're going to make tons of profit off of them.
We have not sold raised goats for meat.
We raised goats for meat, but we didn't
retail
them for meat in the in a roundabout way we did. We sold them as show goats to young kids to
4-H kids.
Show, and then ultimately those ended up being meat goats.
That's right. Yeah.
Sold for meat goats. Right. Now, can you be profitable on small acreage with, say, raising that style of an operation? Yeah, you can be it can get pretty lucrative, but it takes a tremendous amount of work.
Yes.
It will take quite a bit of input costs to get the right kind of genetics. And you need to be an evaluator or learn your craft very well to find out what current trends are, what's hot, what works, and what sells. And then you have to spend a lot of time establishing a reputation for offering those kind of winners. Now, can you make money? Yeah, there's big money you can make in it.
Yes, they can get pretty ridiculous.
But that big money also means that there was big money input.
Big money put into it.
Put into it to get them to that point. Now, on a commercial standpoint for raising meat goats, there is some, if you have like a really woody area, lots of underbrush, that hard to utilize for, say, other ruminants, cattle and stuff like that. Maybe goats are the answer there, because they are a browser.
They will clean it up.
They will clean it up, and they thrive in that kind of environment.
Yes.
Sheep, on the other hand, depending on what breed of sheep you have, if you're talking wool sheep, you can raise wool sheep on regular pasture. You'll have input costs for fencing. You have input costs for infrastructure as far as barns and stuff along that line.
They do have to have shelter.
They have to have shelter. You may have to invest in some livestock guardian dogs or animals of some type, and spend a lot of time keeping the neighbor's dog from getting into your pasture and eliminating you from the sheep business or the goat business.
Yeah.
Now, wool sheep, there is a good market for meat. Wool sheep, maybe not as big here in the United States as in other parts of the world. And then kind of the end thing in the sheep has become the hair sheep world. Hair sheep are a lot more manageable, and you can do some investigating into some other channels that are on YouTube that raise a lot of hair sheep, and see how profitable they are. Yeah. They talk big numbers and profit. A person really has to think about how much labor they have invested there and how much ground it actually takes to do things like that. That may be something that we're going to be looking at in the future here for the 9 acres is some of the hair sheep world and stuff like that. What's number 6?
Freezer beef.
Raise freezer beef. So you do have to have enough acreage in order to raise butcher beef or raise a steer or freezer beef up to get it to the weight to have butchered.
They need so much room per animal.
Yeah. And you have to make sure you have really good fencing.
Yes.
You're not going to be able to put these up with, you can't have 2 pieces of old rusty barbed wire with a fence post every 100 foot or so. Yeah. You're going to have good fencing. I know people say, well, I can use an electric fence. Well, you also have to remember that electric fence can go down.
Yep.
You really have to be diligent about that electric fence. And those are all things that you can do. But
definitely.
Now, it does take a large investment to get into beef as far as the beef itself.
The beef takes is high.
Now, depending on your school of thought, if you're a grass-fed person or a grain-fed person, if you're a grass-fed, grain-finished type person, which is where we would fall under, you are going to have some pretty high feed costs. I mean, they're going to eat several pounds a day.
Yeah. If you're a grass-fed person, you're going to have lots and lots of pasture.
You got to have a lot of pasture, really lush pasture, and you really are going to have to be into a moving or rotational grazing system and learn how to really maintain grass, have a good supply to high-quality hay to offset when your grass is not good, to have that happen. Right. Now, is it profitable? Yes, it's profitable. Most people will retail it the same way like we do hogs. They will sell halves, wholes,
and quarters.
Now, if you go far enough into that, you go all the way to retail it yourself, federally inspected, retailed, and you do a really good job marketing it, spend a lot of time,
you can make a lot of money
shaking hands, kissing babies. You can make good money. You really can, but you also have to remember, if you're like us and you're working a full-time job, when are you going to have the time to do that along with raise them at the same time? So it takes some dedication there.
Yes.
What do we have next?
Sell produce at farmers market.
Okay. Sell produce at farmers market. So what's been your opinion on selling produce at farmers market?
What produce we had in the past, we've done well with it.
I'm going to say when it comes to a small farm, in my opinion, and you agree or disagree with this statement, that probably that is the largest opportunity to have a farm pay for itself, and the most profitability in the farm that I've seen.
Yeah.
Raising produce, fresh vegetables, selling it at farmers market, selling locally to people at a roadside stand, whatever.
Yeah, that goes.
Supplying.
Everybody wants fresh produce.
That is probably the largest potential for profit that we've seen, that has been an eye-opener for us here on the 9. Yeah. We kind of raised some for ourselves and then started selling at the farmers market, and had no idea there was such a large demand for it.
There is.
There's a very large demand. You do have to have some infrastructure like we were talking. In order to make it profitable, you're going to have a greenhouse. You're going to have a high tunnel if you're in a growing zone like we are.
Yeah.
Where we have frost that's clear into the month of May. So you're going to have to extend that growing season, started earlier, because you don't want to be the last one there to the party with lettuce or tomatoes or kale or anything like that. You've got to be the first ones.
That people was asking for was tomatoes.
And tomatoes to me, I mean, it's almost like a to me, I wouldn't think that tomatoes would be that big of a thing.
Yeah.
Because really, tomatoes, about anybody with a pot on their back porch could grow tomatoes. But, I mean, that was a very high demand.
The demand that we had.
Because people honestly don't like... They don't want a hothouse or a greenhouse or a high tunnel tomato.
Grocery store tomatoes. They don't want those.
They want a vine ripened... open air garden
tomato. There's nothing like a vine ripened tomato with some bacon, bacon lettuce tomato sandwich.
So lettuce wise, your spring lettuce mixtures of leaf lettuce.
Well, our kale went wild.
Kale went wild. People really come back week after week for kale. The biggest problem that we have seen with or that we run into with getting into the produce side or vegetable side, say at the farmer's market, is we didn't know what to price our stuff at.
Yeah. We had trouble pricing stuff.
So we tried pricing stuff like what we can buy it for at the grocery store. Well, you're undercutting yourself.
Yeah.
You really need to look at organically grown if that's what you're doing and price it that way. Because when we started checking around, in other words, do your homework, go to the farmer's market and see what others are selling it for and try to at least be close to them. Don't be the undercutter there. Don't be the guy that sells it way cheaper than everybody else does, because you're not going to make friends.
You're not gonna, and that'll hurt your friendships, and
it hurts your bottom line.
It hurts your pocketbook too.
Yeah, but zucchinis and stuff like that, things that you can grow an excessive amount relatively easy, are the things that really sell well.
Yeah,
cucumbers, but that is probably the one facet of our 9 acres that we probably are going to exploit more.
Yeah.
And I don't mean exploit in a bad way. I mean, we are going to move farther in that direction, because yes, your initial cost to set up your raised beds and your things along that line, or your high tunnels or greenhouse, may be a little bit of an investment, but when it comes time to plant, if you're doing your own amendment growing, so doing your own compost and things along that line, I think your input cost from what we have figured is going to be way cheaper in the long run.
If you do your own compost, it's so much better.
It is way better than anything you can buy.
Love it so much better.
All right, what's
create a CSA.
Number 8, create a CSA. So everything that we've talked.
So what is a CSA?
What's a CSA? That is a great question. A lot of people see this term CSA and they don't know what it is. CSA is customer supported agriculture. So in other words, you sell memberships to your farm business to customers. In other words, they pay a monthly fee and you provide them product. And some of the most successful CSAs use everything that we've been talking about so far. They use produce from their farm. They use proteins as far as butcher pigs, butcher beef, butcher chickens. Some use rabbits and poultry of other kinds. They eggs and things along that line. And essentially what you do is you state that you're going to provide, say, so many items weekly or monthly, however you want to structure it, to those customers, and you set up a business that way. If it is done well, if you're very diligent about what you're doing as far as what you're providing, you're making sure everything that goes out the door is very much, what's the word I'm looking for? Very much high quality,
yes, high quality.
And worth the people's money. You will grow very fast doing that. And in fact, that's something that we probably are headed towards. Of course, when you go to start selling proteins and stuff like that, along with that, you're going to have to move into that federally inspected side of the world here in the state of Kansas. So that means I'm going to have pigs federally inspected so I can sell them a part at a time. I'm going to have beef federally inspected so I can sell them a part at a time. And chickens, thankfully, in the state of Kansas, if you're under so many head, we fall under an exemption. Now, CSAs take a little work to get established. I'm going to tell you, if a CSA is something that sounds interesting to you, there's loads of resources available via YouTube. Also, the best place is go to your state's extension offices. They have lots of information about CSAs. And it could become a very good business for a small acreage farmer.
Yes.
Number 9.
Sell baked goods at farmers market.
So sell baked goods or cooking items at farmers market. Back to the egg discussion. So we have found that we can utilize those eggs better to sell them as baked goods, cakes, pies, cookies, things along that line. And we find those items are very profitable. Customers come back week after week looking for those items.
Yeah.
Like we started selling sourdough breads last year.
Zucchini bread.
Zucchini bread.
That went over really well.
Zucchini cookies, you know.
Yep.
Take those vegetables that you're having in excess of, take some of those out instead of selling them as fresh, turn them into products that are more profitable. You can sell at a little higher dollar figure and increase the profit for your farm.
Your mom was making dry ridge cakes. It's a cake that she created, and those went over really well too. So
don't be afraid to try different recipes that people don't get very often, but at the same time also don't be afraid to pull out those old family recipes that like show up at potlucks and everything that people don't get very often but are really excited to get, you know. This day and age everybody is looking for that quick meal. You know, we're so busy. And by you offering something like that at farmers market, you've now established that now that's a stop for them. Oh, you know, 9 Acres is going to have...
Oh, that was good.
Good. They're going to have a cake there, you know, we can have this week or something along that line. So don't be afraid to offer food items. Now, again, everything we're going to curtail here as we have been. You have to follow your state laws when it comes to that.
We started... just recently we started doing the meal in the jar type thing, and
so the feast in the jar, we took part in a collaboration put on by Janet Homestead where you are, but it's called a feast in a jar, and within that we discovered these meals that you put all the dry ingredients in a jar and you just have to add, say,
the liquid and
the liquid
protein.
And your favorite protein choice to go with it. Those kind of items, you know, there's nothing there that's unsafe, and you can sell. And people, honestly, I mean, go to the grocery store. What are they buying? They're buying all these boxed meals full of preservatives so they can sit on the shelf for days and days and days. Where if you buy the raw ingredients put in a jar, and then they sell it and sell them it in a jar and tell them if they bring you back the jar, you'll give them so much credit for it.
Right. So
that you can have a supply of jars coming back that you can wash, sanitize, and reuse again. So that's got us to number 9. What's number 10?
Create some kind of homemade crafts, furniture. I do candles. Just some kind of just a little hobby that you have.
Don't be afraid to get your art on.
That's right.
So I'm not an artsy person. No.
He's leaving that up to me.
Nana's the artsy person. I'm the get it done guy or the fix it guy or
you tell me what
you want built and I'll figure out a way to build it guy. Now, like things around the farm, you know, raised beds and steps and we want a gate over here and we need to build a chicken coop here. I'm your guy.
Yeah.
But if you want to make it look pretty, I'm not your guy. I'm not a pretty guy. I mean, look at me. No. But don't be afraid to do things like that.
Yeah.
Like I know we'll give an example like this. We know of a young couple that just got married. They started off, he worked a job where the company got tons of pallets and they were just hauling them to the dump.
Yeah.
So he started bringing pallets home, started taking pallets apart and making furniture out of it.
Yes.
And made very good money selling pallet furniture.
Yes.
Or little bookshelves and tables and, you know, like TV stands. And then it turned into making headboards and footboards and
spice
complete
cabinet. And,
beds and spice cabinets and
Yeah.
all kinds of stuff like that. Or like we had videos where we needed a shelf made and we figured out how to make a shelf relatively simple and easy and very functional, and we made one, showed some pictures to some people,
And-
they told somebody else, and the next thing we know, we're making a shelf for somebody.
What would you charge me to make a shelf?
But yeah, Nana's candle business kind of is what started that for us. You know, she kind of, as a hobby, starts making these candles.
Yeah, it was going really good, and I started back to school, and I was focusing on school, and I'll be picking it up again, but yeah.
So we
I
have
got
to
it
get
going.
Of course, any business like that, you know, you've got a little bit of startup to get it going.
I have some
so
other
many
things that I've
people-
been playing with, so
Yeah.
but there might be a couple other things coming, but
So that's a way to think outside of the box on your small farm of things that will make money for you. So, you know, making those crafts. So many people think that making t-shirts or making hats or cups and stuff along that line is a really good business. And it can be a good business.
But
it takes-
everybody does it.
A lot of people do it, and it takes a lot of input costs to get started into that.
To get all the
To get all the
machines and stuff you need.
So the biggest thing on how to make money on your small farm that I can say, you got to do all of it.
Yeah.
You can't be very single in what you're going to make. You can't be one faceted, because what happens when one facet, the market gets flooded, people move from that market, you have a natural disaster, you have a sickness come through, say you're raising livestock and it wipes you out. Well, guess what?
It's gone.
You wiped yourself out. So you have to become very diverse in what you're doing. So what's the most profitable thing? It's not 10 things or 10 ways to make money. 1 out of the 10. It's all 10.
Yeah.
You need to do all of it in order to make your farm profitable.
Go big or go home.
I don't mean that you have to be,
No.
you know, huge, but
Yeah.
you need to become diversified. Pick 3 and become very diversified. Now, my way of thinking, don't pick 3, say, proteins, like 3 butcher animals. Pick a butcher animal, a gardening, and a craft, or something along that. Make sure it's
Baking or,
diverse.
Yeah.
But that has been the number one eye opener for us and our farm, which I already knew that because of growing up on a big farm. You don't put all your eggs in one basket. We didn't just raise corn. We didn't just raise beans.
Yeah.
You know, we raised both and wheat in between. Plus we had cattle, because if the corn market was down, the cattle market was probably up, and vice versa. Or if corn market was really down, you could always feed that corn to the cattle
Yeah.
to, you know, utilize it that way, something along that lines. And we have to wrap our minds as a small farmer around that same thing, whether that comes to gardening, It comes to livestock that we're raising on the farm. It comes to the crafts or something along that line. It comes to our baking, on our in our food storage. We have to think diverse, because we don't, the old adage of don't put all your eggs in one basket rings very, very true. We don't want to depend on one single thing.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to add?
No.
Okay. Make sure you come back to the next episode. Going to be a surprise episode on what we're going to talk about there. We do appreciate you. We know that you're very busy. We appreciate you taking time out to stop in, listen, watch whatever one that you're doing. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for the support that we got on the introduction to this podcast. And until next time, farm on.
Keep strong.
We love you.
And so does God.
Have a great night.